My name's Tom Darrenthal. I'll be the moderator tonight. I live on Nash Place, and I'm part of the steering committee. And we'll start here with Sharon.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sharon Busher. I live on East Avenue. Catherine Bach, live on North Brooklyn. Linda Bowden, I live on Brooks Avenue, and I've got a couple things to mention. This is the time to do that.
Yes.
So one thing is AARP Vermont is having an open house next Thursday, which is the 16th, from 1 to 3, and that's in their offices, which is in the FedEx building. Good luck getting through traffic to get there, because they've blocked off that intersection. But you can get around, and parking is free, and there'll be refreshments, but it gives you an opportunity to find out all the different kinds of projects that AARP is doing for you, as far as the community goes. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that they have, there is a new community challenge grant opportunity out there for NGOs as well as 501Cs, and I will put all of that information in Front Porch Forum. But if you know somebody that is interested in improving walkability within the city, or bike areas, or pocket parks, or anything along those lines, there are opportunities for it.
The meeting's gonna be open house only, no Zoom? It's in person. In person?
Yes, there will be a
Okay.
couple people that will be, but
Okay.
yes, for the most part, it is in
And
person.
the FedEx building is the one on Main and Winooski?
Winooski, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so that intersection is closed right now because of construction that's
Yeah.
going on, so you have to go around the back to
Yeah.
get to it. Off of King Street or anything like that to get onto that.
Okay.
Winooski. But the parking is underneath, and there'll be a volunteer there to help you park and take care of all that cost.
Okay,
So
thanks.
I encourage folks to come. Several members are in this group as far as advocacy, tax aid, you may know about that program, livability, and what am I missing? Well, of course. So if you're interested in any of those kinds of areas too, so come and join us and have fun.
Can you bring up what you feel is AARP is not addressing? When you go to that meeting?
I don't think there's anything we're not addressing.
Oh, I do. So anyway,
Yes, yes.
I would very much like to find out where that building is. I've drawn a blank, I don't know, but anyways, I really would like.
It's across the street from where Maribel's used to be.
Senator Welch's. Oh,
Pico.
Pico.
Government building.
Yeah, I don't consider that FedEx building, but I now know what you mean. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Second floor.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Fresh Mountain, 11 Brooks Avenue.
this is the last one.
Here, I'll take that.
Hannah Brislin, I am here on behalf of Burlington Community Justice Center.
And
Hey, I'm Shawnee Corey. I'm the new NPA Public Engagement Specialist for CETA.
I'm Michael Mitchell. I'm here with the CAIP out of the Burlington Police Department. I'm Gutman, North William Street. Don't get around the Oh, you got another one? Okay.
I'm Allie Schachter, North William Street, and I think my announcement is I'm one of your East District City Council candidates. So it's nice to see all of you, and happy to chat anytime tonight or another time. And look forward to conversations between now and March 4th. And beyond. It's not to be March 4th.
I'm Jonathan Chapel Sokol. I'm on North Street, Movement Street, North Prospect Street.
I'm Carol Livingston. I'm on the steering committee and live on Collective Foot. I'm Kathy Alwell and I live on 36 minutes. And I'm supposed to be doing two search houses.
Yes.
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't think it's gonna be. Well, I'm also running for city council here in the East District. And is there another time that we're supposed to do this?
I saw it.
Next month, we will have a.
Oh, okay.
If AARP doesn't do it.
You got, that is that, you got a word?
There's one there.
Hi, I'm Troy Hendricks. I live on Village Court. I am one of the state representatives for this district. And I will make an announcement. I got an email just 2 days ago, I think, from the Secretary of State, announcing that Sam Doherty, our steering committee member, no, his son, Sam, I'm talking about Sam, yeah. Yeah, Sam, is one of 10 finalists. I'm just gonna read the email here. This is the John Lewis, Youth Leadership Awards, the nationwide award organized by the National Association of Secretaries of States. The award honors the legacy of Congressman Lewis and is given to individuals under 25 who have demonstrated leadership abilities, have a passion for social justice, and are motivated to improve the quality of life in the community. So Sam's going to be at the State House on Friday, and the two winners are going to be announced, but he's the finalist for this nationwide award. So, yeah, when you next see him, and perhaps one of you.
Hi, I'm Dave Colley. I live on Nash Place, and my announcement is it's close to February, so we're about ready to have our winter celebration down at Sheminster Park. It's going to be on Friday, February 7th. Starts at 5:30. We have a bonfire, and there'll be hot drinks. And the bar will be open, and then the following day on Saturday, which is February 8th, from 11 to 3. There'll be a variety of events going on. The park spring sports equipment. We'll have a sledding hill going, cross country skis, snowshoeing. There'll be some music, Samba Picada, and the Brass Balgan will be playing. And we have lots of free eats. In fact, Samantha and Joel will be there because Samantha's providing chili for the event, so that'll be great. So it's free and it's open to everyone. So hope you can make it.
Richard New York, I go 4 happy years old.
Part of the user, improvers I have,
That's right.
Hi, I'm Matt Price. I live on Prospect Hill, and I am also trying to run for school board this year. And it would be wonderful help if I could pass around a signature page, for you all to find. Just get me on the ballot, not an endorsement in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is this?
These the microphones are really just for people offline.
Oh, okay.
Or
I'm sorry.
online.
Hi, my name is Matt Price. I live on Prospect Hill, and I am trying to get on the ballot for school board for the East District.
Hi, I'm Karen Long, and I live on Henry Street, and I've been here 40 years. And if, one question, if we've signed one, do we sign a second?
We're not competing against each other, it's two different seats.
Oh, I see,
Yes.
okay.
We're collaborating.
Okay.
Competition.
Well, it's good to know, because I wasn't sure. Thanks.
Hi, Gary Golden, live on Collective Court, Old East End. To follow up with Matt's announced that Matt will be running for the East District School Commissioner seat that I occupied and Kathy pulled over before me. And then I'm switching over to do the 1-year opening for the Ward 1 School Commissioner spot. So that's why you'll see two different petitions for us.
We can sign both.
You may sign both. I think you can sign both.
All right, did I miss anybody?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna go next to Speakout, and this is an opportunity to talk about your concerns or issues that need to be voiced. We want to see hands. We don't have any issues?
Looks like Jean is looking to speak.
Oh, good.
So you can.
Jane?
I, of course, on this cold night, I am concerned about people who are unhoused. I'm hoping everyone tonight finds shelter. Maybe we can do more to build better housing, more housing.
Have a peek out. Should I stand here or where you?
You can stay.
Oh, I need one of these.
Yes, you need one of those things.
So I will not be here next month. Sharon is anywhere I've been. I'm actually going back to California. My family's there. 2 have evacuated from the fire, 2 are in hospital. So, but I am coming tonight because, and like I said, I've been here 40 years. I want to introduce our friend and neighbor who we all know because she's been here forever with us. Capiello, because she is going to be a candidate for the East District Council seat. And on Saturday, she hopes to secure the endorsement of the Progressive Party. Kathy has lived in Burlington for 32 years and in our ward for 24 years. She has served on, serve on the Ward 7 School Board for 7 years. And as our East District School Commissioner from 2016 to 2023. Kathy's a retired social worker who worked for both King Street Youth Center and Sarah Holbrook Community Center. As a neighbor, Kathy is generous and caring, will help at a moment's notice, whether it's a car seat or a COVID test kit. She even delivers. Kathy's boundless energy and extensive experience makes her the perfect leader for the East District. And one thing, I don't know how people feel, but we used to meet with Ward 8. And I've gone to a couple Ward 8 meetings, and I've been the only person there. Sometimes Tim would be there, Tim Doherty, and the chair of the group. So I don't know if this group is open to merging again with Ward 8. But that group has just really fizzled out, which I think is a shame, because there is a group of homeowners and I think active students that would like to be engaged if there was more of a group. Anyway, thank you.
It's a quick response, and Jonathan can respond to. Nick?
Ryan.
Ryan is the chair of the steering committee of Ward 8, and we have met, Jonathan and Tom and I have been to all ward meetings and have met Ryan, and have extended all kinds of information and support and interest on talking together about what might work if the 2 wards would like to be together. And we haven't heard anything. I think it's mostly because they're struggling with organization. There's not. So I think they know. I think Ryan knows that we're interested in having a conversation to see if it makes sense to be together. That's where things are.
There.
He doesn't go that way. So, in that case, the steering committee potentially just invite them, Ward 8, to a joint meeting. And if people come, fine, if not, but just, I think that I know some of the long-term residents in Ward 8, and there's some hard feelings, but I don't know where they stem from. I don't really know why we separated. And it's not like I want to relive history, but I think that everybody that I have heard, I've never gone to one of their meetings, their NPA meetings, but I've heard that there's really no meeting. There's just that presence of one individual potentially, and there's very little engagement. But I'm hoping that there's a way to facilitate opportunities for those members to either Zoom into our meeting, to get information or whatever. I mean, because we are united, and anyways, I'd like the steering committee to contemplate that. And if it doesn't seem appropriate, so be it, but I still feel like I'd like to do more than just talk about it. I'd like to offer them the invitation, and if they don't come, I guess there's nothing else we can do, but thank you.
Jonathan?
I think it would make a lot of sense.
I'm sorry, Susan.
I think it would make a lot of sense for us, and I'm happy to do this. It sounds like there might be some consensus to ask them if they'd like to come next month to a public forum, to the candidate forum, because each district is each district. So that might be a beginning. To be totally honest, Carol doesn't mince words. We've done this several times, and we've never really gotten positive response about it. So we assume the committee knows what they're doing. If the other thing is, now with the new merged front porch forum, where everybody in the old North End gets the same front porch forum, we no longer access downtown. I'm not sure where Ward 8 is in terms of downtown in old North End, but all of our meetings are open and free and accessible. If they can't see the meeting, it's a little like the Ward 2-3 thing. It's not like Ward 3 people can't go to the Ward 2 meeting. You know, there's nothing stopping people from coming to meetings. So, so let me get a hold of Brian. We'll talk a little bit about next month, if that's okay.
Sure.
Very quickly, I think this is a great idea. I think we should do it. Maybe pending that conversation, just put an announcement in front porch forum of a joint meeting between 1 and 8. Then it'll probably get wider circulation.
I think we may have to just say that they could claim divorce if they nullify. Yes. Yeah.
I just want to say that having been on Ward 1 and 8 school board commissioner, and for anybody that is a district person, it would make our life a lot easier. If we find it again, did you end up going to 2 accounts?
Yeah.
If they're both active, while they're 8 was, now it's not, but I just wonder why we're not doing that all over the city, the 2 wards that are connected, that we don't have a combined one for those, so that we are not going to a bunch of meetings every month.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead, Mike.
So I appreciate you mentioning the front porch forum. Personally, I think the combined front porch forum is way too big, and we've lost a lot of the intimacy and closeness of our old front porch forum group. And I think part of the purpose and the beauty of the NPA is to spend this time focused on this discussion. We don't have enough time. These meetings go too long anyway. And I've never been to one combined meeting, but it just seems to me I treasure this time that we can talk about things that are particular to our ward. And if they would like to come, that would be great. And if they show an interest, terrific, develop it. But if they're not really, then why push them? They're welcome, please, but
Any other comments?
that's my 2 cents.
Oh. Perfect.
So, if I may ask, Karen, what is
Yeah,
that?
Carter first and then you.
Well, so I went, one time the police commission was doing something. I mean, I've gone 3 times, and honestly, it's Brian, Nick. There is no committee. It's Ryan, Nick. And then one time Milo Grant was there because she was presenting something. And I also went because it gave me extra time, hopefully, to see Tim or Hannah, because there were different things going on, maybe about neighborhood code or whatever. But it just seems like there is, like, the people we know, when we did merge, we really had like 4 other people, and it was the owner occupied people. It was Linda Risby and Ann Brenya. It was there a few people that, like us, live in these, often heavily student rental neighborhoods. And for them, I'd ask them, how come you guys don't even go? And it's like, oh, we didn't even know there was a meeting. So there is no reach out, there's no committee, there's no anything, and I guess it could be up to certainly Linda and Ann to try to drive it, but I don't know. It wouldn't make us a double force at all. It might add a few more people who are very engaged in city things, and I feel bad for them that they like lost our group for whatever reason.
Jonathan?
Carter.
Well, no, just really quick, I was gonna say the same as Kathy did, which is just logistically for. You know, every district councilor that I've spoken to about this over the last couple of years has said that it's really difficult to go to meetings. Because you're just so packed with other stuff. And I would assume without speaking to city staff that that's the same thing for staff, but you have limited resources, limited time. We want CETO and we've been having conversations with Jonathan with working group about strengthening city support for NPAs. One way to do that is to cut down the number of meetings so that you have more staff dedicated to.
Jonathan?
I'm going to start with a snarky comment, and then I'll go to the I think there were only 12 people in the city of Burlington who wanted districts at the last vote, and they were all city councilors.
Yeah, I agree.
The community, pardon?
Some city councilors.
Well, you weren't a city councilor.
No. Many.
I'm not anyways.
Yeah.
The community committee, the advisory committee had two issues that they wanted fixed with the redistricting. Number one, and number two was Ward 8. And neither of those things were addressed. So it's all fun. So let's kill it. The other thing is I think it's good to go forward and you know, with this sentiment, I'm perfectly happy to contact Ryan and chat with them. There's 20 people in this room. There's 5,000 people in our ward. We should probably put that energy into getting 20 more people in this room from Ward 1 than to worry about Ward 8. They, you know, we can worry about them, but they should worry about themselves. They, you know, they need to do their work and be accountable for what they do. Yeah, I'll stop.
I'm gonna just, I guess as moderator, I'm not supposed to make comments, but I need to do anyhow. I think that having a open invitation to the candidate forum to people in Ward 8 would be a great idea, and then we can gauge their, you know, how many people show up, how interested, and that will be some sort of measure of what interest they have.
I second that.
What?
Yes, I second that idea.
I actually have, I should have said it before, I just got a very brief, and then someone mentioned AARP, and AARP has a tax service that's provided. There's over 70 people working as tax, or will be working as tax aides in training, including myself. And I think the first day of actually doing taxes is February 7th. I may have that not quite right. And so if you need help with taxes, look for information on how you can get your some tax help from AARP.
Free.
Oh, yes. Oh, except for when I do it. I take it. No, it's free. It is free. And it, anyhow, so we're gonna move forward to Gary, you're gonna talk about the school.
If it's okay, while Matt's still here, if you'd like to do that quick little intro about who you are.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, so I need you to stand over there and take that.
Okay.
I'm training him already.
Yeah.
Okay, they're below.
Or you can be saved by the camera.
Oh, there it is. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Price. So as I said before, I live on Prospect Hill, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump across the street. I will, after I leave, say, I will have to, my wife injured her ACL, I have a tear. We have two small children, but it's a lot for her to manage on one leg. So after I'm going to be ever Gary with present, I might have to step out just because I want to take care of things at home.
But I'm interested in running for the school board. I am by training a clinical psychologist. I'm also a professor at UVM. And where I specialize in helping individuals who've been through traumatic events. And I see in my work with these individuals, in my work across the career, just the benefits and the power of helping, of a strong school system, a strong school foundation of helping people who are started off on the wrong foot or have a really going through difficult time. I myself am a product of the public school system, having gone from elementary all the way through my doctoral degree at public education systems. My mother was a public school teacher. My wife was a special education public school teacher. So I have a strong love and passion and strong admiration for what public schools can do and also what the teachers who work in them need to be successful. And so when I heard that there was an opening on the school board, I inquired about it and then was very rapidly matched into saying, do this.
Like, the call went out.
And so I'm excited at the opportunity to be on the ballot.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm the parent of two small children, one of which just started kindergarten this year. So I'll be with the Burlington School District for 18 more years. So I've got quite an investment.
Expect you to serve that long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and your thing you're passing around is where for signatures?
Oh, right over here. Oh,
Cause I didn't sign it yet.
oh.
I don't think we signed always.
Yeah, yeah, you can, because it's two different positions.
So Vera, you're up next. Okay.
Good, bad, and the ugly.
Hey. I represent that one. So I'll hold temper down the doom and gloom. We do basically have some good news about the budget. As I mentioned last time I spoke, the real emphasis was on level spending rather than level funding. So, because the funding is sort of a mobile number, which I'll get to in a moment. But our administration came back with a number that was a 2% decrease in the tax rate paid by us. So that's the best news. And that includes the school bond, it includes the now statewide CLA, that's the common level of appraisal that gets adjusted every year because residents pay for schools. And so residents should be taxed on what the real value of their, or at least the estimated value of their house. That's the CLA. A big adjustment this last year, I think Troy can step in if needed, was rather than emphasizing the local number, it's now a statewide number. So now it's kind of equalized across the state. That sort of takes out of play the Stows and other towns that, so it actually did just finally reappraisal this last year, but they were something like 20 years delinquent on an appraisal. It's a political hot potato for any town, and we went through it, now almost 3 years ago. But now this decision on the state kind of equalizes that across the board. So fewer people are penalized for it, fewer towns. We will receive probably we would be looking at a 10% higher tax rate if it wasn't for the weighted pupil money. So to refresh your memory about that, legislation a few years back finally got around to assisting districts that had large numbers of English language learners, large numbers of students on IEPs or other services, and large numbers of students in poverty. When I worked in the district 20 years ago, was the small advantage way. And we had a classroom in every school form. to deal with those issues that the students brought. Some had learned English in their camps, for the most part, they were starting out from nothing. The then Department of Education Commissioner, who had been a superintendent in Colchester, walked through, saw everything we were doing, applauded us, and then made no efforts to try to find money to assist these new costs that we were bearing as a city. It's finally happened. It's probably going to be under attack this year. From all indications, it's seen as unfair by districts that don't have those populations. But we do have a coalition of districts that do share our needs. They may not have the English language learners, but they certainly have the other two categories. And so we are part of a cooperative that lobbies and promotes those needs at the legislature. And that'll continue. So to cut to the chase, there are two issues I want to tell you about. The administration did come back because of that weighted number. We're looking at a 2% decrease in our costs that we're passing on in the tax rate. We still have the bond, which will be an albatross for, sorry to do this to you, 39 more years. But we'll have a new school that will outlast hopefully all of us. It will, and that's, we are fortunate in some ways that it was forced on us, because if you look at even Woodstock voted down a school bond for construction. Woodstock. Every district in the state is looking at either deteriorating infrastructure, they're looking at mold, they're looking at rust, it's just, what was the number, 7 billion estimated?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know that next year.
Oh, no, it's conservative. Yes. So there's the warning inherent in that is it appears our governor is, through documents that are starting to circulate, that more and more money in the federal, some of the federal Supreme Court decisions are promoting that we are going to have to start supporting with public money religious schools and organizations. It's already, the camel's nose is in the tent with after school programming. Before, I think last year, monies were filtered through, given to the schools. They had the responsibility for parsing out after school money programming. Now, individual organizations can petition for that money. And it's still a small percentage, I'll say that, but it is starting to filter out into the religious community. And that will probably increase. We'll see what happens after the 20th. So that's my only down number. The other is a bit of clarification. The state agency of education has decided the last couple of years that our budget number that we present on the ballot should reflect our entire budget. Problem with that, it looks like this incredible number because it has to include all the federal money we get, all the extra grants we get, everything that's not accounted for through our direct taxes. So the number you see, our actual spending should be around 104 million. That's what you're being taxed on. But the number you're going to see on the ballot is $135 million and equalized across per student. What we had to do is include the last of the COVID era money, the ESSER funds, because we're spending 11 million of that on IAA, the old Wheeler School, to refurbish it. So last ESSER money we have, but it's this year. So we have to run that through our budget. The tech center got a $10 million grant for rehabbing a hangar out at the airport to run our aviation program, to run and then also house 3 or 4 other programs that are sort of homeless in the new high school. So like auto tech body is there, advanced machinery is there. And then the aviation program, which is just amazing. I walked in the tech center a few years ago, there's a helicopter, you know, and then the hangar out there has like 12 planes already. So it's a great program. It leads directly into very lucrative jobs at the airport. Beta is picking up a lot of our grads, not the ones left over, but they're in competition. So it's a great program. So again, because of the numbers are still a little fluid, we haven't voted yet, so I can give you the 2% decrease, but I can't quite tell you what the increase will be, but it's still, we asked for 5% or less, and it looks like it's gonna fall in that. So that's all good news. Transparency, part of that is because the big hit was last year. That was the big CLA adjustment. That was the big bond servicing first time. So really, that number has just stayed in the budget. You won't see the increase because it was already there. Several smaller groups that I've thought is really pushing back about looking for new numbers around administration and other costs. If you're going to fire teachers, we're going to let go of teachers based on student population. There should be a comparable number of administrative costs that also go away, to be fair. So that still remains on the table. The administration did several $100,000 of those reductions this year. So they're hearing, but you know, it's still, yeah, it's still an issue. So try and keep under my time, which I did. Any questions though? Sure. And then Sharon.
I just want to punctuate on the. I think Gary kind of mentioned this, that it is. I want to make certain that this room understands. And I wrote about, if you go to my website, troyheckert.com, in my blog, I think the most recent one is when I wrote about this. The weighted student formula benefits Burlington to a tremendous degree. And it is absolutely undercut. I think that is going to be one of the ways that this administration seeks to change how public education is funded in the state. And that's going to have, you said what was the delta on that?
Yeah, it was or less than 10, but it'll be here.
Yeah, so
like $7,000 per student.
Yeah, and I'm not in those rooms, so Ways and Means is going to be very active this session, looking at different ways of funding public education. The Education Committee obviously is going to be looking at this as well. And I know Senator Ruth has committed to going all in on education funding first. So I want to encourage everybody in this room, those of you who are clearly the more politically active folks in this district, to really be watchful. And I'm going to try to report back when I can and how I can once I start hearing things back. I'm just not in the room, so it won't be real time. I just want to really encourage. There's an outside game that matters in those political decisions, right? And the outside game is these sorts of community members who are applying pressure to those committee members, to those committee chairs, to the governor's office. We have to protect the weighted formula. We have to. And then the other factor in here as well is if we can decrease the cost of healthcare, that's going to be a significant impact on school budgets. So be watchful. I think one of the first things the health committee is going to be doing is single payer for primary care, which will have a small impact on our healthcare costs, but so please be watching that. I'll try to alert us as we go on through the session. And please think about being willing to be totally active and thorn inside of people.
Here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, actually, let me just say one thing. So it's a small room, there's pillars, and there's also people sitting behind each other. So if you can't see yourself up here when you're speaking, you're not on camera. Okay, so that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, two quick questions. The issue regarding the monies that is going to be present on the ballot versus what we actually get, the tax dollars. Will that be in the statement or in the question, will that be clear that 103, whatever you stated, is the taxable amount and the others are monies from other sources? Because I think that would be really important for
Yes.
someone who comes to the polls, who isn't a political junkie, but looks at the dollar amount and that triggers a response even yes or no. So that's the question, one question. The second one is, it's similar.
Okay, there's the first one. We are limited in our language for what can go on that ballot question. So the one we have right now, we're spending 134,545,000, blah, blah, blah. And then per student spending of 14,889. That's all we can do. We can't do that breakout. So we're trying to get the word out in these meetings. That $35,000 difference is accounting for money that we have access to, but isn't on our tax bill.
Right, and so I'm well aware, and
Yeah,
I don't make Neil used to, I mean, what you can do to educate people or to be a bias. I want the voter to be as informed as possible, because I want people to say yes.
You'll see a lot in front porch forum, either from me or others.
So the other question is, and hopefully this is easy to answer. The life of the bond for the school, built the high school, is how many years? 40? Okay, and the life expectation of the structure is?
Twice that. We're hoping twice that.
Twice that,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Sure. Others, the number will start going down incrementally as we service more, borrow less. Last year was a big hit because we borrowed so much to put the building up. Now it's less so because we're filling in the building. But yes, it'll still hurt for a while.
Do we have other questions? I've actually got a couple.
Okay.
One is that if we get grant money.
Grab the microphone. There you
go. Thank you for reminding me. If we get grant money from someone, right? Say big college wants to give the school district $40 million, their operation next year.
Yeah.
How does that play into what the state gives us?
We asked the state for the money we need. And that comes out of the educational fund. There are now some penalties in place for overspending. But that's probably the one downside of how funding is set up now, because the overspending phase was put on pause for COVID and just timed out. So now those penalties are back. If you look at, there have been a couple of Vermont Digger articles, the school district that serves Killington to Woodstock, were having to lower their costs because of potential penalties of overspending.
But I guess my question is,
Yes.
grants, is that a component of whether you're overspending? That sounds like the answer is yes.
Think of what we've been told.
Because we wouldn't be asking the state for that money.
Right.
We're just saying, you're gonna give us so much money, and then we're gonna spend an extra 40 million in money. Okay.
Right. It would be an equation. The granting is so small a number in comparison to that large budget number that it would be taken into consideration on the state end. I don't think they have their formula. set yet.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Sure. Feel free to write or call. My information's in the front porch forum articles. You can search for me.
Thanks, Gary.
Sure.
We have a couple people who have joined us. Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Cards. Next, yeah.
I'm Cheryl Green, and I live in Burlington, Housing and staff.
I'm Peter Lachowski. I also live in Burlington Housing, same place as Cheryl.
Okay, next on our agenda, Carter, you're up. For our council update.
Yeah, Brent. So I have a couple updates since we last met. I think there was one city council meeting since we last met, and then we went on to the holiday break. Our next meeting is coming up in a few weeks. That was really.
Just know the mic doesn't do anything
Oh,
for
yeah.
us.
Yeah, no.
So loud voice.
I'll be louder. Is it better? Alright. So I talked a little bit about last week, students or even priorities that I was focused on in CNR, which is the committee that I chair, community development and neighborhood revitalization. There's not too much to update there. Our next meeting is next week. I introduced the housing resolution that we talked about, asking CDO to find ways to essentially double the amount of money to investing in affordable housing development. And do that in a way that's going to either one, be revenue neutral, or two, give us pathways, either the state needs to grant us some powers, or that we currently have, that, the parameters are that it can't impact working and middle class households. In terms of any sort of increased revenue. So there needs to be a reasonable understanding that, for example, if the hotel's tax, we can infer that tourists are going to be paying that. So we're giving us some potential pathways there. I expect that that's going to move out of committee at our next meeting this month. And so the following council meeting, either the end of January or early February. I'm hoping to bring that to the floor. The other two resolutions, I still need to work a little more. The holidays and starting a new job this week slowed me down, but we talked a little bit last week about the conflict of interest, financial disclosure resolution. I'll get that in the next few months up and moving. And then Jonathan is part of this working group with me that's meeting next week, once or maybe twice, to hopefully finalize that NPA resolution we've been talking about. Other quick updates, I just have a quick punch list that I think is good for folks, given what we've been talking about, to check out potentially. 2 days ago, the mayor held a town hall on the two basically capital needs and anything that's going to be on the town meeting ballot related to sort of money asks. So rather than sort of trying to do that in 10 minutes, I encourage folks to watch it. It's on multiple city departments present. The mayor speaks for a while about sort of what those are, what the need is, so that folks can make an informed decision when they're voting on those. So other than those things, I just wanted to get through a couple things. Last council meeting, the most controversial item was we had a question in front of us. A number of community members gathered 2,000 signatures to get an item on the ballot that was asking the city to pass or voters to approve what was called the apartheid-free pledge. It had to do with the topic of Israel and Palestine. There is a 4-line pledge. Most of it, I think, is there's broad agreement that's not controversial. There was one section of it, but there was more, like I think maybe STEM where there's disagreement about STEM in terms of the content. that did not move forward. Without getting into a whole discussion on it, I voted to move forward, and I think we should have. Just from a pure democracy perspective, 2,000 people in our city say we want to have this debate. I'm personally of the opinion we ought to respect that. But we did not have the votes to get that done. The other item which we've delayed, it's gonna be a fun council meeting next time because we delayed a report that we compromised on, the two boxes we compromised on to ask Chief Murat to issue a report about DPD recruitment, officer recruitment. That report, I have a meeting with the boss, I'm not gonna get it done in 10 minutes. There's a number of things that I'm gonna be talking about before that I think are you know, the report wasn't overly useful, I'll say. It was not what I was looking for, and not what the resolution instructed the chief to do. Specifically, I'm particularly sort of peeved because I voted for the chief and expected slightly different behavior, but as part of the compromise to get me to vote for it, I wanted to see that the report would be reviewed so that we weren't sharing information with the police union as we're heading into contract negotiations that would put the city at a disadvantage. So essentially share that as part of the report, anything that might affect contract negotiations. So that we're not putting taxpayers in a bad position. That did not happen. The chief said that violated the ask to the police union without any sort of review from or conversation with the mayor's office, the city attorney's office, or anybody else in city government, which is not at all standard operating procedure, and I think was wildly inappropriate, frankly, and a violation of the resolution as written, and as the entire council came to compromise on. So that'll be a fun debate coming up, but we're going to talk about that and hopefully something productive. We also had an update about the Winooski Bridge. Without getting into it, because I know we've talked a lot here, I think around capital projects, we've had a lot of conversations about the state and federal government not sort of stepping up and helping fund some of these capital needs. I think this is actually the rare exception. We are going to be paying 5% of the cost. The feds and state combined are going to be paying 90% of the cost. Winooski pays the other 5%. So we're putting in, I don't know the exact number, but it's around $5 million. We're going to get, you know, in the range of $70, $80, $90 million out of the federal and state funds. So I think it's the cheapest option in the next few decades that we're going to have to repair the bridge, which really needs to be repaired because it's crumbling right now. So three more updates and then I'll open it up if there's still time.
There's no time.
Okay, so 3 more quick updates then. Over the holidays, the mayor opened up an emergency shelter because we only have so much money to do that in the city. And we're trying to target it on the coldest days to reduce the amount of death. We have about 750 individuals roughly, essentially representing around the city. The state's motel program is fully at capacity. After that being fully at capacity, there are still 350 folks roughly who do not have housing. They did target, in theory, we don't know this for sure, I guess, but in theory, we targeted resources to families. So we have particularly young kids under the age of 10. Folks with disabilities, seniors, etc., are not being targeted. But those are the resources that we have, so that's what we're doing. We've talked a lot about tax fairness. The mayor announced, which we've been talking about a little bit, a tax fairness working group. She announced the members of that working group. There are folks from both caucuses as well as a number of subject matter experts who have years of experience on the subject, and they will be meeting for the first time at the end of this month. And they're also gonna be discussing or more discussion will be around, we actually have really good affordability programs in terms of our utility rates and making those progressive for folks at the margin. And so we're gonna be talking about ways to improve that and expand those. Last thing is tomorrow, there will be a town hall on public safety held by the mayor. It is the third town hall that the mayor has held in Concourse. It's gonna cover the public health response to substance use, Burlington Fire Department, BPD, and criminal justice reform, Vermont for criminal justice reform. The Chittenden County Court, we'll talk about treatment court, Chittenden County Court, drug enforcement from PD, and then we'll have a conversation as a community. The last, and these are all recorded, which is why I'm mentioning them. The last agenda, public forum on community safety talked about anti-violence work, services and supports for victims and survivors of crime, youth engagement, and support. And the very first one had talked about bail and release, and sort of we've had a lot of conversation about how the court system plays into this. Also gun safety legislation, and then again, we've had some community engagement where we gathered ideas and had further conversation. So I will definitely have time. But come up to me after, email me if you have questions about any of that. Thanks.
We got questions for Carter?
Well,
Yeah, sure.
I just wanted to say that the meeting that where the Winooski Bridge was put on our last meeting. I was happy to hear.
I believe so.
Goodwin, I
Hello,
think that's how you say his last name. Mention Mill Street and access, and he was very clear about the fact that restricting people there to only take a right hand turn was unacceptable. And although there was no decision made at the meeting, there was an openness that even though we all said this, it's very frustrating when a number of people bring
You have to
forward
scroll
a
it.
concern and it's ignored.
That's fine.
But I'm glad that when a
By the
council
way,
brings
it's
forward
going to be
concern,
showing
it
up there
can't be
already.
ignored. And so
And
I was
also
glad
YouTube.
that there was a
So you might not
willingness
want to
to
share this
address that
yet.
potentially not all the time.
You might not want to share
But
this,
at
your
certain
screen yet.
times, at busy times, it's still only be able to turn right, but at other times, there would be potentially an ability for them to turn left. And so for me, for that little population of Ward 1, who I feel has been ignored by this whole project, I feel that there was an opportunity to make that better, and I was appreciative, although there still were the same challenges that everyone here in the room had brought up about the bicycle safety and the barriers between pedestrians and bicycles still have not been adequately resolved. But anyways, thank you for all the work that you have done on it, and the council, I think hearing everybody and at least bringing forward the concerns of the neighbors that abut that intersection or use that intersection. So thank you.
Yeah, and just very quickly, this drafting, I know I should turn it over. I think there is more of an openness than I've seen in relation to the news bridge from DPW. Just to be totally fair to them, it's not going to solve anybody or send anything, but they're also like, you can't make the decision as a city. When you speak to agree to any sort of design change, or really like any we make, we need the state and feds to also agree. This is more generally in this project easier to deal with. The feds and state are less so at different times, depending on the subject, and we'll talk about in terms of like bike lanes, lane width, Mill Street turn, things like that. So I think what DPW's pledge is that they have heard those concerns, from members of both caucuses and the public, that are willing to sort of push hard, even though they're not as optimistic. But I think we ought to push hard. So yeah.
Thank you.
Cyril has their hand raised.
So I just wanted to give quick feedback about the Zoom meeting tonight, that that when people other than the main speakers are speaking, whether it's CETO people or people helping to get the Zoom going and whispering back and forth, everybody that whispers and talks that's not the main speaker, it interferes from our end with what the main people speaking are saying. I may not be solvable, but I just wanted to at least give this feedback. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, get started.
Next up. CAIP.
Okay, that's us.
Okay. Absolutely.
My name is Hannah Brislin. I am a victim service specialist with the Burlington Community Justice Center. And I'm going to be talking about the parallel justice program. We'll get into that in a minute. I'm just going to let Michael introduce himself.
I am Michael Mitchell. I am a community support liaison with the Burlington Police Department. I also work out of CAIP alongside Hannah.
So the parallel justice program, I'm going to cover this particular program. I do work under multiple programs, but this is my primary one. And there's multiple programs through the Community Justice Center. So if you're ever interested in hearing about that, feel free to reach out and we can figure out a time to come to another meeting and go over those programs, which can range from court diversion to COSA. I'm not going to get into all of it because we don't have a certain amount of time. So let's talk about parallel justice. I'll give a little nod over there to Shawnee. Thank you. So first, I'm going to just cover a little note on language. I work with victims of crime. Not everybody wants to be referred to as a victim or a survivor. So I might say affected party, I might say impacted party, and I might switch between those. And as a more of a community wording, I will say harm over crime sometimes, and then I might not actually, if I'm referring to the person that's responsible, I might say responsible party for the person that committed the crime. Next slide. So parallel justice in a nutshell. I'm not going to get too. I'm not reading off of that because that's annoying. But it's up there if you want the true in depth of it. The parallel justice program is embedded into the BPD. So basically, I do work out of the Burlington Police Department. I work in the CAIP offices, and I receive a list each week from the BPD of recent crimes that have been committed and the information for those who have been impacted or the victims of those crimes, and I do outreach to them. Those crimes can range from bike theft to burglary to assaults, whether simple or aggravated assaults. It is a pretty wide range. So as you can imagine, I have about 100 plus people a week that get sent to me to reach out to. I also get direct referrals because parallel justice, we can provide our services to people even if they do not want to report to the police or go through the court process. So I get referrals from other agencies. I get people that just pass around my card, which I do have some cards here. It's kind of all over the place. Essentially, we can go to the next one. What we do, excuse me, is we provide emotional support, moral support, community support. We get people connected to different resources. It can be very overwhelming when being a victim of crime and people's like, they don't know what steps to take when you have brought up fraud. They don't know what steps to take. I do. I know so much about fraud. And they, you know, it can be so overwhelming too. I call it kind of trauma brain. Your brain turns into a word jumble. And so I can be there to listen and then help people with the next steps. There is also minimal financial assistance. I have used what we call our victims fund to replace bikes, to replace parts on bikes when somebody recovers a bike, but it's damaged. I have utilized it to basically get people groceries because they had all their stuff stolen. I had used it to replace car seats. I'm not a parent, and just by the way, the cost of raising a kid, my goodness. Car seats are so expensive, and I have replaced those, and I'm just like, shout out to the parents. You all are great. So it's pretty wide ranging of what I can provide for support. And if you're ever curious to know more about restorative justice, that's a big piece of also what I do, because sometimes we have the opportunity to bring people together, those who have been harmed, those who have caused harm, to go through a restorative process. And you can go onto our website to learn more about restorative justice. Most of our programs utilize this process. And I'm a restorative justice practitioner. So yeah, feel free to reach out if you ever want to find out more information on that. We'll go to the next slide. And oh, by the way, we'll do questions like at the end. So if you have like a really burning question, just let me know, but we'll wait on those for the end for the most part. So we do have what's called the Parallel Justice Commission. We meet quarterly. We have people on that commission. I am the chair of commission, and my coworker Lauren is the co-chair with me. And we have Barbara Rachelson, representative from Burlington on it. We have people from Steps and Domestic Violence, Hope Works, Howard Center, the state of Vermont, quite a lot of people on there. And we basically look at different ways that we can improve systems, because when you work in this field, you start to see the holes, the gaps. And so we try to find ways to fill those gaps. We also look at possibly different legislation that could be put out there. We also bring in people who have been impacted by crime to speak and to share their story if that's what they would like to do. Next slide. All right, so victim services at the Burlington CJC. I went through the Parallel Justice Program. I also wanted to touch on the Conflict Assistance Program. This is done by my coworker Barb, and this is great. I like to bring this up in the NPAs because there's conflicts between neighbors from time to time, and this program has been utilized a lot to bring those conflicts to a close. And so if you are ever in a conflict and you're not just seeing the end of the tunnel for it, you can reach out. Barb is amazing, does mediating, and people have found really great other side. I have referred people to Barb many, many times. They've had good experiences. So next slide. Yes. The key to a healthy community is our relationships to one another. I love the NPA meetings. I had the pleasure of running them before Shawnee had, you're not Shawnee. Shawnee's over there. I was sitting next to Shawnee a minute ago. I'm tired to go. And this is the place where we start to talk about how we're going to address it. I think we all know that the city is in a tough spot. I've lived in Burlington for 15 years, and it hasn't been this bad. And it breaks my heart, and I know people are struggling. But I also know that people love this city and want to be a part of addressing these issues. So I'm going to make a pitch right now. I need volunteers, yo. I need volunteers helping with this outreach. Like I said, I get like over 100 cases a week from BPD. And I just think it's great for neighbors to be able to call neighbors and be like, listen, I heard this happen to you. How can I support you? So if you're ever interested in being a volunteer, reach out to me. I would love to set you up for that. Shawnee, you can go to the next slide, and I'm honestly forgetting what it is. All right, so we're gonna go deeper into how to support. So I recently did a piece of this at a Cathedral Square location, and I've gone through a lot of this discussion at Decker Towers in the past year. So you're doing it right now, MPAs, love it. Obviously too, connect with your city councilors. That's like a biggie. And also your state legislators, as well as getting involved with like the different community engagement. I know that Carter had brought it up. I'm going to sing it again, and I know the mayor's here. Tomorrow's community forum on public safety. These are great places to understand the full scope of what's happening and to understand the steps that are being taken. So I highly recommend it. And I believe the majority of them have been filmed and can be found on Town Meeting TV. So there's all of them. Thank you. So you can look back at the other ones there. And if you want to link to them, I had sent out a link recently to a Cathedral Square. So you can just reach out to me. I have an email where I compiled all these links and I can send it to you. All right, so I think that's all for me. I'm gonna pass it over to Michael to get started on talking about CAIP.
Thank you so much, Aaron. So, CAIP is a social focused and service oriented department within the Burlington Police Department. What does that mean? I'm going to put that into human terms. Next slide, please. What the department is essentially this is a department who is focused on providing social oriented services and connections to resources as a front line response. In other words, when you call in to the police department, fire department, medical emergency, this provides the police department with the option of first responders who can focus on social needs and connection to resources. Next slide, please. How we do that is through having a department that is composed of several different specialists, different types of folks who can focus on different needs, different resources, or addressing different services. Now, I could spend an hour going over every single one. I won't do that today. What I want to give you is the basic understanding of the broad scope of what we can provide. As you can see outlined here, these are the types of specialists who are working in here. Main thing to cover is we have folks who work on domestic violence support, folks who work on social work or gap management support, that being the community support liaison. I myself am one of those. The victim service specialist, that is Hannah. And finally, our CARES team. This is the newest part of our group. These are clinicians, mental health, substance use clinicians who can address these things in the field. Next slide, please. Now, the next few slides are going to be a more in-depth explanation of each of these. I'm going to cover them briefly because I know we got a lot covered tonight, but just to give you a basic idea, our CARES team, for instance, these are clinicians, folks who are trying to be able to focus on mental health, substance, and some in-field medical diagnosis. So this gives us an expanded skill set for addressing particularly mental health and substance use needs in the field for folks who need longer-term connection to longer-term resources or a wider range of support services like Howard Center, for instance. Next slide, please. Our DV, advocate and prevention officers. This is the two different roles, but they work in the same area. Domestic violence, victim support. This might be either prevention, safety planning, for instance, or follow-up, things like helping someone apply for a relief from abuse order. So these folks are going to be actively engaged in supporting victims, whatever that might be, whether that be relocation, legal questions, pure safety questions. They can support them where they are following an event or in attempting to prevent an escalation event. Next slide, please. And as already wonderfully covered, victim services. So I would just say that as a team, we do support their work by making sure to continue to compile a list of who are the folks we are encountering who need to be passed on to victim services, as well as informing them of other resources, both CJC offered or other peer institutions. Next slide, please. So community support liaison, there are 6 of us. What we tend to call ourselves are either as a type of social worker or folks who work in gap case management. What that means is covering the gap in between other institutions and resources. Those areas where people can fall through the cracks if they don't know who is the person that can help them with the problem, we can support them through that. At the end of the day, a lot of this work really comes down to being the human being that they can come back to when they don't know where another human being is. They can always say, I know I can call back in regardless of what my history has been. If you would, next slide, please. And sometimes this comes down to things like call response and just pure advocacy. Being that human face of asking, what is the issue you are facing? What resources are out there to help you get to it and helping them navigate that? Because as I'm sure we all know, navigating bureaucracies can feel very inhuman. When you are also one of the most put upon people in your society, it can feel truly monstrous. So having a repeated and caring face that they know they can come back to, that in and of itself is a big help. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
No problem. This picture's a little out of date. Our team has grown since then, but this is just a brief summary of the different kinds of skill sets that we have in this department that we can use to support folks where they need, however they get introduced to it. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go through all this. I know it looks like an electrical diagram, but essentially this is a little outline of how cases can move through the different rings of engagement, whether that be with police department often coming in as a call through dispatch, and how they can reach us or other areas of the CAIP. Next slide, please. So just to close it out, one little note on safety. One reason it's so important that we are embedded as a department in the police department, how that comes to impact our work is primarily through safety. Safety in the sense of being able to have connection to broader resources whenever there is a question of violence, have a safety plan in place of how are we going to provide for humans and account for the actual circumstances of whatever that situation might be. And it provides in-house training, particularly into things like de-escalation, mental health first aid. Next slide, please. So this is just a brief overview of how we try to be both proactive and reactive. Proactive in the sense of engaging with the community through a variety of means, some of them being like this, attending meetings, attending public forums, but a lot of times being things such as foot patrol through neighborhoods, talking to folks at places like Fletcher Library, being a recognizable face in a recognizable place. And some of our work is reactive. A lot of our cases come in through the police dispatch. We talk to folks in lieu of a law officer because their response does not require an enforcement or force-related or law enforcement response. A lot of times it's social in nature, and so they can start with us, and we can either work with them, connect them to a resource, or determine if it does need to indeed go into enforcement. Next slide, please. And these are some ways to get in contact with us. That is a brief overview. Again, I know I throw a lot at you on that, but the primary thing I would like everyone to leave here aware of is that the CAIP is a place to start when you don't know where to go. The CAIP is a set of skills, a variety of folks who are there to address social needs, or at the very least, get people connected to the right person. All right, much.
Do we have time?
You do.
Right. I saw you try some cookies too, so okay. Yeah.
So how do we reach a dispatcher? What is the number for that? And are they the ones that would then assign after hearing our story, or how does that work?
I think it can depend on the call. What I'm gonna do is we have a sheet, and I didn't print it out. I failed. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm gonna send it out though to be included in the notes. It shows you the like who you would want to call in a certain situation. So it has like the CSO number, which is, that's what I refer to as cop lights. They like they respond to like car accidents and stuff like that. And they can do some citations, but they can't like arrest anybody. And then we have the CSLs or CAIP, and then we work very closely with the Howard Center outreach team. They have a specific jurisdiction area of the city where they can respond to things. And so I'm going to send that out, and it kind of outlines all that. And then it also has like, this is when you call 911. And there is a non-emergency number for the Burlington Police Department, and you dial 9, and that takes you to dispatch. And like if you need to do a welfare check, or you have like a neighbor that you think needs a welfare check, a lot of times the CSLs will do welfare checks. You can call dispatch, say, I need a welfare check, and then send somebody over. I actually have done that before when I have come across somebody that was breathing, but did not look well. And they were like, in my neighborhood, I live down the hill. And so I've done it in that case before. Does that help answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Sharon.
Yeah, so, thank you. First of all, you know, I know about CJC, so, but the liaison is something newer for me, although I was aware of it. What I'm gonna say is that I think there's a gap but it's not the gap you identified. I feel that during COVID and during the significant reduction in staff that occurred, that there was, I don't know how to, I'm not trying to be negative, but the response from the dispatcher was often that it left people floundering. And I don't feel that people, including me, because I've had conversations with people, are aware that that has changed. And that if you call, so that's the gap that I'm talking about between what the community has previously experienced and now what the department can actually offer. And I don't know how to address that. I mean, yes, you're reaching out to us, but we're a small sphere of the total membership of Burlington. And I don't know, I mean, when people move in, I feel like, you know, these are sound stupid, but there used to be like little welcome things. I mean, but letting you know who you're gonna call. And I think that this kind of information is key. I've lived in Burlington a long time, and you know, I'm opinionated. I try to be a good neighbor, but I've had difficulties, and I think that in the past, right now it's fine, but I think that would have helped if there was a service like you're providing. There was the fence viewer. That was the only thing. If you had a boundary dispute, that was the only thing. But you're talking about more meaningful dialogue that diffuses situations that could get out of control. And so, first of all, I want to applaud you, but I want to identify for you this gap, and I don't know how to address it. And I feel like there needs to be a wider spread of this information than, and I applaud you for doing this with all the NPAs, but we need to do more, and I don't know what that is.
I appreciate that feedback so much, Sharon, and I think that that's a piece of why we wanted to do this, is because we were taking notice of the fact, like, I would call people, they would have no idea who I am. And that is, we are trying to close that gap, and I think I'm gonna bring that feedback to not only the police department, but also to my department as well, so that we can start thinking and brainstorming about ideas of how we can do community engagement and community education around this, so people know how to get in touch with us. So I appreciate it so much, Sharon.
If I may.
Yes, you of course can.
Yes, thank you so much for making your voice heard on that. And I want to assure you, you're not the only one that we've heard similar sort of feedback on. In a lot of ways, the development of this department, both its creation and its ongoing evolution, is a response to trying to find what that solution is going to look like. We're all working on that solution together right now, and it only grows because of that sort of feedback. Thank you so much.
Any other?
Okay.
Yes.
It's complex what you do, and it's amazing all the different skills that are required. My question is, how do you measure success?
Well, I'll start with me, and Tom had brought this up earlier with me. I would recommend going onto our website. We are currently updating our data for FY24, which ended for us in July, and we have a new data person who I love dearly, and is her spreadsheet work is mwah. So I'm hoping that that's going to be posted. We actually went through it today in our staff meeting, all the different programs, and it showed what we have accomplished, how many people that we served. We have programs like court diversion and free trial services. And so that shows up a little bit differently than like the victim services on completion, because they actually have to complete a program. How I measure my stuff, because I have to report to what's called VOCA, because I receive VOCA funding for my job position. So every quarter I submit information on basically who I helped, and that includes like demographic information, what type of crime had occurred. And so that information will be also in there. So for us at CJC, that's how we collect information. It will go onto our website, and then I believe that we're going to be building some sort of newsletter that will be included into that. I'm going to pass it over to Michael.
So much as Hannah said, the CAIP department is also trying to find ways to both demonstrate qualitatively through numbers and trends, the impact it's had. But then there's also the quantitative, the actual human results. So we're 2 years in on the CAIP department's existence right now, and I'm aware, but not directly involved in that, my boss, the assistant director, Lacey, I know that she is working on projects related to assembling that data. We now have 2 years of data that we can point to, stats, trends that we can say, what have been the impact, and is it the impact we want? I know that work is not done. So still a work in progress, but it is actively being worked on. As far as the human to human moment, the case to case basis, that is, we do have not a specific like casebook style of tracking each person's individual progress because of privacy, but we have the human relationships with people, so we can say how far are you towards the goal you're getting towards, whether that goal be housing, sobriety, mental health access. We are continuing to work with them and tracking how closer are you to the long-term solutions that we're looking to get you at. And whenever we step back, taking assessment of what happened, how do we learn from this? So capturing that data, that's an ongoing work. We are working on it so that it can be presented and we can show this is what we're doing. Of course, it is a difficult process right now because it involves those numbers and stories, but I appreciate that question.
It sounds exciting, actually, what you're working on to provide these kinds of results. And I think that's something our community needs, is that, we hear about the problems and we see the problems on the streets every day. And we know that, the social services have begun, and they've been in place for a year, 2 years, and it's evolving. But it doesn't seem like we're getting the feedback about how's the community moving? Are we moving the needle? What, how successful have our approaches been? And how do we retool when we find out certain things don't work? So that kind of information coming to the public, I think, will be extremely helpful.
Just a very quick question. Thank you for the work that you're doing. When we hear about the police force, quote unquote, is CAIP considered a part of the police force? And I ask the question, when we hear about it being staffed or understaffed, you consider yourself to be understaffed for what you need to do?
So yes, CAIP is a part of the police department, 100% inside of the police department. Staffing, that is distinct for each area because the police department is not one single unit. It is multiple kinds of units within the CAIP itself, within these different positions that I've outlined. I believe we're actually coming up on being fairly fully staffed within the CAIP. But in terms of overall, that's outside of me. But I do know that in terms of the CAIP itself, I'm pretty sure we're closing in on having the specific sets that were budgeted for the specific jobs within the CAIP itself.
And just to add, when it comes to a lot of times when people hear about the staffing at BPD, they are believing that what they're hearing is, and typically that's what's being discussed, is law enforcement officers. So people that are certified to be law enforcement officers. For updates on the staffing for that, I always recommend to people to either watch or attend the police commission meetings, because that's typically where those are going to be discussed. And it's definitely, as Michael said, it's not because it's all different units. The police commission is going to focus pretty heavily on that specific unit.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I'm not. But I'm gonna stick.
All right, next is city general obligation.
I'm just gonna work out.
Are you presenting?
Yes.
And they've got it?
Yes.
Okay, it looks like.
Thank you.
Ashley, this is right.
I'll be back.
You guys want to introduce yourself? Mike is for the people on. You guys.
All right, well, hello, my name is Ashley Parker. I am the city's capital program director. NPA, you gotta ask. How wonderful is that, right? All right, good evening, hour or something at this time. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Emma Mulvaney-Stanton, I'm pleased to be here. I haven't been here yet as mayor, so thank you for having us this evening.
Mary Danko, director of the Fletcher Free Library.
And Michael Chance, chief of the Burlington Fire Department.
And just a quick note, Megan Moyer, our division director for water resources, is online tonight, so I can give like a 5-minute update after they're over. And I'm going to just briefly kick it off because I think it will be important to contextualize the two different items you'll hear tonight. So the first one that Ashley will be presenting on, and Mary and Chief LaChance are really here as part of a larger capital committee that we have for the city. She'll be presenting on our GO bond, which is the general obligation bond. And then the 5-minute update, I know you heard from Megan maybe last month, will be a very important update on some final number crunching and important updates on the city's diligence to make that an affordable bond for everyone. But I wanted to provide a little context. On Monday, we had a town hall where we did a more deep dive on these items. It's very bite-sized in the sense these are complex issues that we're trying to present to the community. That was reported by Town Meeting TV. Thank you, Town Meeting TV, for being everywhere I am, it feels like, so I appreciate that. But it's important, the transparency and education on the core issues facing the city. But what we presented and why we presented this as a town hall and are continuing to do education is to really kick off an effort to make sure you all feel pretty darn educated as much as you possibly can on the challenges facing Burlington with our infrastructure and capital needs, but also our plan to move the city forward in a way that really moves us to a place where we can get on to an economically sustainable way to continue to fund our capital. So many things are the goals of this city related to climate, related to housing, related to right sizing and making our budget affordable, come down to us investing in ourselves. So making sure that our city can thrive, making sure that we catch up on a lot of deferred maintenance in the city, and making sure that we don't get forced, our hand isn't forced in a case of an emergency. We have to then fix things when it's 10 times more expensive or an ill-advised time for the city to take on a very costly broken, whatever it might be, insert whatever item. The GO bond is, I also think, one of our most important items that's across department representation of our collective needs that are outside the operating budgets. And I'm not going to steal Ashley's thunder. She will go into that in much more detail. But I want to make sure you all know that this is really an opportunity to ask questions, get a little more familiar with the GO bond in particular tonight. We'll go more into detail tonight on that. And to remind you that on March 4th is town meeting day this year. March 4th, you'll get ballots between February 10th and 12th. All resident voting on all local matters still applies here in Burlington. And again, this is really, consider this a kickoff, and there'll be many opportunities to learn more. Dedicated web pages, we have information going out. We really want to make sure folks feel very informed and know that this is part of a larger strategic plan to put us on a strong economic path as a city. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for having me and us tonight. I'm excited to talk to you about this opportunity that we have. You can go to the next slide, that's fine. So I'd like to start off these conversations just getting a quick overview of what is a capital project, just so we're all on the same page. Essentially, a capital project is a project that is funded by the city of Burlington. It usually involves some kind of construction, major renovation, street improvements are a good example, sidewalk improvements, parks, recreational improvements. What it does not include is what is typically known as something that is a true repair item or something that fits under what an annual maintenance item would be that would fall on a maintenance budget. Our general fund capital, when we talk about that, I want to share that is really our general fund department. So here tonight, I want to thank two of our general fund departments. You have library and fire. Library falls under our facilities section, generally speaking, but the general fund team covers all of their needs as well as our fleet, our streets, sidewalks, bridges, transportation safety projects, parks, and all the other city facilities, including City Hall. It all falls into our budget. Let me go to the next. So what is the need? The general fund capital budget, we are really working hard to make sure that the general fund capital budget is sustainable in the long term. Right now, the only guaranteed source of funding for the general fund capital is an annual borrowing allowance through charter for $2 million a year. The school district and DED have similar allowances via the charter. But that is all that the general fund capital program has to put towards any capital improvements anywhere in the city. Right now, I have been projecting our 5-year plan. We have at least $8 to $10 million worth of need every year. And so we are working hard to really build up a sustainable source of funding so we can continue to do the capital work that we need to do. What I showed you, on the next slide, sorry. What I'm showing you on this slide is how we would look to spend out the $20 million general obligation bond if you the voters approve it. We would not spend it all in the first year. We'd be spreading it out over 3 years, and that in combination with our annual borrowing would help get us closer to that $8 to $10 million a year projection. You know, one of the things we are continuing to battle, I think a lot of folks are continuing to battle, is just inflation. It is starting to maybe level off a little bit, but we still have seen some significant increases in our construction and non-construction expenditures. And so that is something that we are continuing to struggle with and try to overcome for any project that comes across my plate. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to just kind of give you a high level overview of some of the need that I see across the board in our city. The first thing I have to mention is our fleet. The city has 242 general fund vehicles or equipment that provide services every day. That includes, you know, our public safety vehicles like the fire trucks and ambulances and our police cruisers, our street plows and our sidewalk tractors. So right now, the city has had to defer for the last 2 fiscal years new purchases for general fund fleet. And as a result, that has left us with about 30% that are in need of replacement, which means that they are over their service life. And of that 30%, 45% are related to the public safety vehicles that I was mentioning prior, just now. In FY26, I'm estimating about a $3.3 million need for public safety related vehicles that need to be replaced, hoping that some of this could be taken care of by the bond. And if we are able to do that, I am also seeing in my projections that we will be able to hopefully get back to a better replacement schedule of our fleet, which would be really great. On the same slide, sidewalks are hugely important in our city, especially with our goals for our bike and walk planning. We have about 133 miles of sidewalks, and the goal for the city is to try to replace 3 miles of those every year. About $1 million is what it takes to replace about a mile worth of sidewalk at this point. And we have about 17.2 miles that are in poor or serious condition. And so we're really working hard to try to get some additional capital that we can put towards the sidewalk program to try to hit this 3 mile a year mark in conjunction with using some supplemental funds, hopefully from our street capital taxes that come in every year. In addition to our paved infrastructure, we also have our street infrastructure, and the city owns and maintains 88 miles of streets. And the goal for the city here is 4 miles of streets to be paved annually in order to maintain our network that we have. Streets are a little bit more expensive. They are coming in at about $1.2 million a mile. And we are looking at Tech Services projects that about 10.8 miles of our current street network do not meet acceptable conditions. And so same thing here, you know, we're hoping to leverage some more capital to put towards our streets. And in conjunction with some street capital dollars from our dedicated tax side. Transportation safety is another really important item in our city. I'm kind of combining two things here when I talk about transportation safety. I have our bridges and then our traffic calming, traffic safety improvements that we do. Right now in the capital plan, we have 3 bridges that fall into this. And one of those is the Winooski Bridge project, which I know was talked about tonight. This one's really important for us, and we have a local match requirement of about $4 million remaining to put towards this project. So a large chunk of this bond would go towards supporting the city's required local match, so we can make sure we do this project. In addition, what I've heard from our tech services team is with $300,000 a year, the city could complete 14 temporary or permanent traffic safety, traffic calming features. Right now, we are dealing with, I believe, 56 community requests that they have. And if we were able to tackle this amount every year, then we can probably get close to 75% of those requests, which would be great. The next 2 items are super important as well. We have our city buildings, and we have 19 buildings that we're responsible for. Many of them are old, historic infrastructure, and we have a significant need across all of our city buildings. Right now, we have at least $700,000 across all of our city buildings that we have needs to repair. Putting more money into this would mean, at least if we had our annual borrowing only, we could maybe hit projects in 3 buildings. We've got some needs, Mike could probably tell you some stories about the Central Fire Station, and City Hall has its own issues with heating and cooling. We've had a lot of different needs that just over time, as the mayor said, things just don't get better if we don't do it. And so we're at a point where these are becoming critical projects and sometimes even urgent. So our city building infrastructure is incredibly important, and that is something that's high on the list for this bond. And then last but not least is our park system. The city has 37 city parks, and similar to the buildings, we are seeing about $700,000 in need in each city park due to deferred need. And similarly, we could put $2 million to at least support the needs in 3 different parks. Yes, maybe I'll stop there. Next slide. This is one thing I'm really excited about, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show you the interactive features here, but we have a new capital planning map that is live and available for you to check out online. It is really exciting. What you'll see on this map is really the 5 to 6 year capital plan, the location of all of the things that I see, that I hear from all of our departments that we need. You'll be able to click around. You can filter whatever you want. There's so many ways to see the different data. It's really cool. We have links, we have QR codes. You'll find it on the BTV Thrives webpage. I think it's really neat. So I hope you will check it out. The other connection I'd love you to make with this map is we have a community service connected to this map, which is something that we are hoping to gather community feedback to help us understand what the priorities for capital projects are in the city. I'm hoping with the data that we pull in from this that we can add another layer of data to this map to help us overlay that on top of all of the needs, so we can then prioritize even further some of our capital projects. None of these projects on this map are guaranteed funding. That is one thing I do want to call out. But this is, the capital plan is an amorphous thing that it just evolves every year. It changes based on priorities, based on urgency. But I'm hoping this will be a really fun and interesting tool for everybody to use and to see how it changes over time. This will stay live and active well after town meeting day. So I have some handouts here and outside that you can see the links. You can see the website for BTV Thrives, and you can get to the map from there if you're interested. Obviously, please reach out to me if you have questions or need to find it. And then I just wanted to quickly go through, what is the tax impact here? You can go to the next slide. I think affordability is critically important for all of us in this room. We understand that this is any ask is a big ask. It affects all of us as taxpayers. And we're working really hard to make sure that we create a sustainable plan for the long term through better planning and better budgeting and better transparency, that this will, as we work hard to address our critical needs, we should see a positive impact, and that our capital plan may actually decrease over time instead of staying as high as it is. The big goal here is waiting isn't going to help, it's just going to make it worse. So we should address it now. And then the last thing I want to mention, because I don't have a slide on this, but we still continue to have a plan for wanting to take advantage of any capital revenue that we receive, whether it's the bond proceeds or any other source of funding, to bring in additional grant funding to offset and provide additional revenues that we can use to complete projects. That is something that we have a really dedicated grants team. We were really successful with the last general obligation bond that the voters approved. We were able to take $5 million and basically turn it into bringing an additional $7 million, which was really huge for many of our capital projects. So I do see that there will be some more opportunities to do that with this bond. Next slide. And to continue with that affordability concept, the city has a debt policy, and we review it every year. We didn't make this decision lightly to come to you and asking for this. We understood the impacts of the school bond and the high school, but we did our due diligence and noted that we have seen a growth in the grand list, and that in combination with paying down interest and principal payments for existing debt across the board has given us a gap to be able to feel comfortable asking for a $20 million general obligation bond at this time. And then lastly, the number that is probably most important to, I think, all of us is how will this affect your tax bill? We have on this next slide a table showing across several different categories. Homeownership, essentially we project that the maximum impact on anybody's tax bill, if this bond were to pass, would be an additional $12 a month on a $500,000 home. And of course, as we continue to pay down our debts, that could fluctuate over time and possibly even go down over 20 years. And I just wanted to share again the projection of spend out over time. I think that is essentially it. We will continue to be traveling around town doing more NPAs, but you can feel free, and I have my email at the end of this presentation, but you can reach out to me with questions. Yeah.
Let's add Megan, and let's do Megan and then do questions at the end of this. She's only been on for a couple minutes.
Oh, wait, whoops.
I have Megan's online. She's going to be the short 3-5-minute update, and then we'll take questions all together. That's you.
Megan's unmuted.
I'm unmuted, but can you? There we go.
Here you are.
Megan, I think muted again.
Yep, I'm here now, and my face is here. But I'm close. I just share my screen. Hold on. Hi all, I think I recognize most, well, at least when it panned around the crowd, it looked like it was a very similar audience to when I last presented to you all. So I believe I visited with you all in November, where we outlined some of the original iterations of the bond proposals for drinking water and for wastewater and stormwater. We are calling those the water bond, obviously for drinking water, and the lake bond for wastewater and stormwater. And I'm happy to report that we've done a lot of work. We've heard a lot of feedback. I think the general consensus that I've heard, if I can paraphrase it is that people understand the need and are generally supportive of the city doing these projects, but that when we started talking about the original numbers, which at the earliest on the case of wastewater, stormwater was in the $218 million ballpark, I think eventually then shrunk down to 204. And now we have further shrunk it down to a total of 152 on the lake bond side for wastewater and stormwater, and have shaved a little bit off of the drinking water bond to get us down to 20 million. So just quickly, how did that happen? And these materials should be available online, if not currently, certainly within the week. But basically, when we were presenting our proposal before, we were, and you know, this would still be staff's preference. We were coming in for everything that you sort of see in this beigey color, which is all of stage one, which is doing all of the improvements at our largest wastewater treatment plant, addressing some combined sewer overflow reduction strategies, dealing with pump station, stormwater outfall repairs, and some other risk-based storm and sewer improvements, and then also some key drinking water projects. And at that time, we were also hoping to go ahead and get bonding authority for what we're now putting in stage two, which was to pursue the consolidation of East Plant to Main Plant. So turning that East Plant wastewater treatment system into a pump station, and then putting on a whole new pipe pathway that would get those flows to Main Plant, where it would then benefit from the enhanced treatment that Main Plant's providing, and also give us some more flexibility with regard to growth in our city as to where it occurs. We also were hoping to fund at that time the highest priority resiliency improvements at North Plant, which is our other small plant at the end of North Ave, and then also a dewatering upgrade. As I said, when, you know, getting the council feedback, certainly getting feedback from you all, including, I think I saw Sharon Busher there, about, hey, it's just too much for the city to bite off all at once. There's so many unknowns. The city itself is still trying to figure out its finances. You know, Megan, tell me what we have to do, and then we can talk about the rest later. And so that's what we did, was basically split out the handful of projects that we thought could happen a little bit later, and were slightly lower risk, because nothing's really no risk. And to really convey, though, to you all that by doing this, you need to expect that we will be coming back potentially as early as 2027 for the balance of the work. Now, my dear hope is that the balance of the work, the dollar figure, is going to be smaller than what we currently predict it to be, because we hope that we will be successful in potential cost reductions due to value engineering as we build the project, and the grant funding that we will be pursuing from the state. And if all of that happens, then hopefully that stage two nugget will be smaller. Again, from a transparency perspective, though, we know, and we're about to kick off a system assessment at our drinking water plant, which was last upgraded in 1984 and is obviously also of very critical importance. And so in that stage two, 2027 number, by that time, we likely will then know what the drinking water plant is going to cost. So what does this mean for rates? Before I go to the rates slide, I want to convey that while we're only going for this 2025 bond, because the East Plant project and the North Plant project are well-defined, have a defined schedule, and pretty much have to happen, the rate plan that we're putting together, while it looks better, does actually include the intended borrowing for those projects, because I don't want to show people and get them used to a certain level of rate increase and then 2 years later all of a sudden change things. So I've gone ahead and continued to include that so that I'm providing ratepayers with the most conservative estimate of what things may look like. But when we factor these things in, instead of I think it was 113% rate increase over a 5-year time period, and then I think like 150% increase or something, 160% increase from FY25 to FY35, we're now looking at about 90% increase over that 5-year time horizon. Again, very much based on current information, we believe that's conservative. And then 130% increase over the FY35. Again, in those later years, there could be a lot of other projects that we're going to have to do. So I can't stick my landing as well as on those years as these other years, but I think that is it. Oh, the other update I think we talked about a little bit was, affordability programs. Water Resources, we're proud that we're the first in the state to have a affordability program for water and sewer users. That program's, it's great. We think there's likely expansions that need to happen to it as we go on this rate increase trajectory. But the challenge that we're having is that the water sector is having a hard time determining what the best benchmark for affordability is. By current industry standards, Burlington doesn't have an affordability program, doesn't have an affordability problem. And we all know, as people who live and work and try to survive in Burlington as well as Vermont, that it's really challenging to pay all of our bills and that these rate increases are not going to help. So we're really looking forward to working with the city council to really understand what that benchmark is and then to adjust our program as needed to make sure that, this saying that we have at the top, we really want to make sure that our water bills are ones that a household can regularly and successfully pay on time without compromising that household's ability to meet other essential needs. I don't ever want a Burlington ratepayer to be in the place of deciding whether they're paying their water sewer bill on time or they're buying food for their kids or paying the heating bill. Like that's a non-starter for us. So we really want to figure out how to make our program better. And with that, here's the summary, and we will be coming to the city council on the 27th to request that they place these ballot items on the March 2025 ballot, which is on March 4th, right?
Yeah. We had a typo on Monday, and now we know it is much more.
George? Quick comment for Megan. I'll have the governor's capital bill probably in a few weeks, so I'll have to sit down with you about those grants. That's where it's coming out of. I have a quick question. I'm more curious, I think, and this is the second time this question is going to be asked to Sharon asked it about the high school bond. Is it common for us to use bonded dollars for vehicles? And if so, like, what's the lifespan of the vehicle? Because we're looking at a 20-year bond, right?
Yeah, so how this would, so that's a good question. It is not common to bond for all of your vehicles. And this would only be looking at our longer term lifespan vehicles like fire trucks. So the city has historically bonded for fire trucks, some ambulances, and our plow trucks, which are the bigger, longer lifespan type of vehicles. This would not be for anything that would, we would not be bonding for cruisers, we would not be bonding for added vehicles, not even for like, staff trucks or whatever, however we call them, those kinds of vehicles would not be bonded for. Those are still going to have to be coming out of a different funding source.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm just curious if there is a resource that exists, and if it doesn't, could it exist? There would be a bar graph, bars of years, and a stack bar graph where the stacks are. What are the debt obligations that we're looking at and how that's going to be paid down? And a complementary graph that is what is the impact on taxes for the individual. So from a transparency point of view, we get I'm a visual learner. I like to see a picture of what that debt looks like, and then what's the impact, what's the impact on me, what's the impact on all of it. So that we have a sense of how that's going to play out over time. So does that exist? And if it doesn't, could it?
We have half of it. Yeah, I was gonna say the closest one was the bar graph image that we had in our slide deck tonight, where it shows that one has all of the current debt over time as we pay it off. But it doesn't correlate with the other side there. Not really.
Capital planning pieces as well.
Yeah, I would say either of those pieces are not, they're not all shown in this graph, whether it's the tax rates and the effects of the tax rates, or how it also then correlates with the capital plan, but I'm sure we can talk with
It's from
our.
an education point.
Yeah, that's great feedback, let's get feedback, we can have that conversation internally.
Could I do one more simple one?
Yeah.
Your capital planning map is fantastic. You can spend hours, as I did this afternoon, going down it. I just have a question. I may have missed this, but when you click on a project on the left-hand side of that, you get some information about the cost by years, but not what it's for, actually. Is there a capability of adding to that at a 50,000 foot level? What is the library money going to? What is the bridge money going to?
Yeah, no, this is a really great question. Actually, we have talked about this internally, and some of our grant team members have been working on one-pagers that I just haven't had time to look at. But we do want to put, well, we call them one-pagers or fact sheets to go with our projects so that people can read more about what something is. Because they're given the name that I give them when I put them in my plan, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything to anybody else. So, no, that's a really good
It's a great
comment.
resource, and I really encourage people to look at it if you're a visual learner.
Richard? Thank you. I can't wait to have city officials come to one of these meetings and talk about the revenue that you've raised and how to mitigate all the costs. But let's start here. The previous administration had a policy not to do any traffic enforcement, and anecdotally, the amount of parking fines in 21-22 was 25 times the traffic enforcement fines. About 8 years ago, a police lieutenant, as a favor to the NPA, I'm sure that's unofficial, but I have it in writing. Wrote to us and said, I did a sharp detail on East Avenue. This was in 2017. And in 5 hours, he wrote $1,700 worth of tickets. Now, if a police officer works at that rate with that productivity for a year, or a 5-day week for a year, just 5 hours a day, he'd make about $500,000 at 2017 dollars. It seems to me that I work on your city streets, our city streets, 2 hours every day. And driving in this city is awful. And I'm sure part of it is because they can do what the hell they like with impunity. Now, apparently we can't have traffic cameras according to the state. But I would like to know what the city is doing to earn money that is basically just sitting there. And could maybe cost money, pay for maintenance of 10 police cruisers or something like that. So there's the question.
Be quick, can't quite see it, so I'm trying to be looking through the, well, now they're both moving it off. I don't fall over. No, I appreciate the question. Yeah, so no, I appreciate the question. So there's 2 different ways I can go about answering that, and I'm gonna try to be brief, but I'm happy to follow up one-on-one after this to get some more questions. So as everyone knows, we have a recruitment and retention challenge in our police force, and we are trying to move in a direction to not only address that issue, but make sure we're using our existing officers in the most effective way. There was a community, there was a priority response plan that was put into place before I became mayor, and we're trying to make sure that we're sending officers to the right calls and utilizing them in the best ways. CSOs, which are the community safety officers that was mentioned in the prior presentation, if you call them the light cops or something, but they have a lower level authority to take off some of the pressure of our officers responding to the more acute calls. Now, I hear your feedback around that's one way to generate revenue. There's other aspects, I've been meeting with our CAO to look at to see where we can be pulling more revenue in terms of enforcement on gross receipts payment, for example, or she just presented something maybe the other day around people who for many years, I'm not saying a month, but for many years not been keeping up with their property tax payments, for example. Other sources for which our enforcement has not been consistently in place. And so we're really looking under the hood, to use a vehicle analogy, it's been talking about fleet for a bit, to make sure that we're being consistent, because we do not want to leave money on the table. Now, to traffic enforcement, I encourage you, I don't know, Carter, if you're on the TUC committee, I can't remember you aren't the one of the TUC members. So the TUC committee is the transportation, utility and energy, thank you, energy committee for the city council. And at the end of the month, DPW will be going with a license plate reader proposal using some work I've asked them to do around privacy data protection in order to see what our options are. So we can better advocate on the state level to utilize technology in safe and boundary ways to make sure that we're really able to do things the most effective and efficiently way we can. Now, that we have a few more barriers we have to go through with looking at state law, as you noted, and making sure again that this is policy that protects data, considering we just had a data breach from the school district today, for example. So I want to make sure we're being careful, but we are definitely diligent looking at where else we can be pulling in revenue and not going back only to the same source when we're not enforcing it efficiently and as consistently is a better word across the board in other spaces.
You've got a question?
So I think this also, I wanted to say first that I appreciate all the work on infrastructure. It's incredibly important. We need to preserve our buildings, streets, etc. We need to make them better to be a thriving city. I guess I'm concerned though about the impact on the people who own homes in the city. And I'm wondering if the tax expectation or the tax burden is really being spread fairly and equitably. And I look at, businesses is one, and I also look at the university and the hospital. I've never really completely understood how we build those large institutions which have a huge impact on our infrastructure. How do we hold them responsible? How do we get money from those entities? So that's a question that I have.
I appreciate that. So to the tax side of things, just today, actually, I announced a working group of a combination of community members as well as city staff to start looking at the local side of our property tax bill. So folks who are homeowners know that the vast majority, 2/3 of our bill is actually going to the state for property taxes that fund the education system. And there is a formula based on state law that based on one's income, you pay a formulaic portion of that essentially. But on the local side of the tax bill, there is no similar mechanism whatsoever. And so part of the charge for the working group is to start looking at what options can make our local side of the tax bill more affordable, more equitable, ability to pay to be considered, other mechanisms that look at how we can generate revenue, and also look at things we need to partner with the state to give us more options to be able to have a more sustainable tax bill for people in the city. So that's one piece of it. The other piece, I'm forgetting a second part of your question already, sorry, the long day.
Well, university,
yes, I knew that, that's one of those institutions, yeah. So right now we are about to, I was also gonna say, actually to this fiscal year, those 3 points. The second point is on Monday, January 13th, we will be doing a preliminary presentation of fiscal year 26 budget for the city. And what you will find, I'm gonna give you a little preview, but please still tune in. We worked very diligently to make sure that we're not going to bring a general rate tax increase to you this next fiscal year. So we will not be asking you for a tax increase authorization on the general tax rate locally. We worked really, really hard because there's another structural budget gap that we will explain on Monday. That's around $5 to $6 million. So there are sizable structural fixes that we have been diligently working since I became mayor to make sure that we get to a place where the budgets are not so difficult and we aren't forcing the burden again to raise revenue on taxpayers. So I just want to really give appreciation to the city team for really working across departments to be able to make that so. We could have very easily just gone to all of you for a general tax rate increase again this year. The last piece on UVM, we are completing the MOU project, MOU negotiations UVM Medical Center first. That's concluding this month. But in terms of the fee for service, I was also confused before I came there, to be perfectly honest, and I think it's okay to be transparent. I thought our MUs had everything. I thought they had the fee for service, anything related to housing, anything related to all the other matters. They're not all in the same document. Someday, perhaps that's a good thing to think about, to leverage those things together. But for fee for service, that's a separate agreement with the university, with Champlain, for example, with UVM Medical Center. And there's room for us to push more around the impact that they have on especially fire emergency services. So they are in the process of hiring a president at UVM, which is why we started with UVM Medical Center first. So we're going to try to tackle that next and to really push forward really frankly, the understanding that we are in this together for making sure we have a vibrant and livable city, that the way that the city goes is the way the UVM goes. And it's really a mutual, we're in the mutual interest for us to figure this out together and for UVM to be a more willing partner in helping us resource what it takes to run a city and support a university.
Thank you. I want to echo what Richard said, number one, but this, remember, was 7 years ago when there was no problem with the number of officers. And it was because of the speeding on East Avenue. And the fact is, and I'm a walker and a biker, and my children did that to school for all those years. Our streets are not safe, and we should be ticketing people, and people will start behaving, I think. I mean, you get one speeding ticket and you're not going to speed again on Spear Street, or it used to be like that. But anyway, that was that. But I wondered, with these expensive water things, what do developers pay, like Cambridge Rise, City Place, the 1,300 units that might be happening in the South End? Like, I feel like all of a sudden we have grown. We've got a lot of units coming in that is a big strain on the city infrastructure. And the people that have already been here, we're paying a lot more. But what do the developers, like, I just saw a for sale with the Cambrian Rise 3-bedroom unit was like $1,600,000 for one unit. How much do the developers pay to increase our water and all those services that we need?
Megan, are you still on?
Yep. So great question. And it's interesting because I can't remember if it was the 1990s. We actually had a sewer impact fee back then, and somehow along the way it got removed. But I've actually been working with Ashley, and we're going to be presenting on the 13th about bringing back water and sewer impact fees, as well as I think a transportation impact fee. And the first turn of it is literally for, we call it a buy-in fee for large projects to basically pay into the equity that the system has developed. So even just on an existing capacity perspective. And then as we start to do these other projects where we are potentially upsizing a pipe or increasing the capacity at the plant, it is allowable to also charge that portion incrementally to the developments. Unfortunately, any development that's already underway has already been approved. I don't think there's a mechanism to retroactively provide impact fees to them, but we are working diligently to get it in place because of the growth that we anticipate coming with the city. I would also say, and I think I've mentioned this in other rate modeling, in my rate model, while I know there are new units coming online, it's hard to know exactly when they're coming online. And so I don't have those in my model. But anytime Cambrian Rise or City Place starts to have people occupying those units, that is going to increase the usage of the whole city and spread out the nugget or the amount of money that I need over a larger number of people. And so that will also buffer the rate increases that I'm currently projecting. So growth, while it has its challenges, is a good thing from the rate perspective. Furthermore, with a lot of those projects, and I think we've talked about this before, we're particularly when they're doing a redevelopment project, so not so much Cambrian Rise because it was greenfield development, but City Place and the South End developments, we're using those projects to make things better. Like that existing parking lot has no stormwater treatment. It just runs off and goes right to the lake. And as part of these projects, they're having to put in state-of-the-art treatment systems, and in some cases offset their impact furthermore on the system. So at least that's the water piece. I have a kiddo asking for a glass of water, so I will step away from him.
Do we have, one more question?
Yes. I wanna thank the four of you for the work that you do in the city. I know, personally, I know how hard one of you works, but it would appear that all of you work very hard. And what I'm hearing tonight is, the desire to be transparent and to be straight, not just transparent, but straight with us. It doesn't always happen, as we know. And I feel that it has been a more fulsome conversation altogether. So I just want to say how much I appreciate that. And Ella, I think that Mayor, your desire to increase transparency, it just feels like it's working here. And so to be having a conversation like this is invaluable. Thank you.
And with that, I think we're gonna adjourn our meeting. So thank you very much for coming. Ideas of what we want to see here, especially if you want to bring these four people back to answer more questions. Please write to the steering committee and let us know so we can plan accordingly.